The hospital corridor stretched endlessly before him, its fluorescent lights casting pale shadows across Michael Jackson's trembling hands. He had faced millions of screaming fans, survived the scrutiny of relentless media, and conquered stages across every continent. Yet nothing had prepared him for this moment. Inside that sterile room lay his son, fighting a battle no child should ever face. The doctors had spoken in medical terms he barely understood, their grave expressions telling him everything their words tried to soften. Prince Michael had collapsed during what should have been an ordinary afternoon, and now machines beeped steadily, measuring each precious heartbeat. Michael pressed his palm against the cold glass window, watching nurses move efficiently around the small bed where his boy lay motionless. The king of pop, who had moonwalked across the world's biggest stages, now felt powerless. His security team stood at a respectful distance, their usual stoic faces betraying hints of concern. They had protected him from crazed crowds and dangerous stalkers, but they couldn't protect his son from this. Michael closed his eyes, remembering the first time he held Prince as a newborn, that overwhelming surge of paternal love that changed everything. Fatherhood had given him purpose beyond music, beyond fame. His children were his redemption, his chance to provide the childhood he never had. Now, as he stood outside that room, every award and achievement felt meaningless. The Grammy trophies gathering dust at Neverland, the platinum records covering his walls, the sold-out world tours, none of it mattered. What mattered was behind that door. A nurse emerged, her expression carefully neutral, and gestured for him to enter. Michael's heart hammered against his ribs as he stepped forward, each footfall echoing his mounting dread and desperate hope. The room smelled of antiseptic and artificial air. Medical equipment surrounded the bed like silent sentinels, their digital displays flickering with numbers that held his son's fate. Michael approached slowly, his legendary grace replaced by the hesitant shuffle of a terrified father. Prince lay still beneath white sheets, his small chest rising and falling in rhythm with the ventilator. unforgettable dripped steadily into his tiny arm, and monitors tracked every biological function with cold precision. Michael's vision blurred as he reached the bedside, his hand hovering uncertainly over his son's pale fingers. The child who had run laughing through Neverland's gardens just days ago now looked fragile as porcelain. Dr. Harrison, the head physician, stood in the corner reviewing charts. He had kind eyes but carried the burden of delivering impossible news to desperate parents. Michael couldn't bring himself to ask the questions burning in his mind, terrified of answers that might shatter him completely. Instead, he finally clasped Prince's small hand, feeling its warmth, needing that tangible connection. The touch released something deep within him, and tears he'd been holding back streamed down his face. He didn't care about maintaining his carefully crafted public image. Here, stripped of stardom and pretense, he was simply a father watching his son fight for life. Michael began to sing softly, an old lullaby his mother once sang to him during his own difficult childhood in Gary, Indiana. His voice, which had captivated billions, now trembled with raw emotion, breaking uncertain words. The nurses paused their work, moved by the intimate moment. Outside, news vans were already gathering, reporters desperate for any information about the superstar's family emergency. Michael's publicist fielded countless calls, each one adding pressure to an already unbearable situation. But inside that room, time seemed suspended. Nothing existed except father and son, connected by love and hope. News of Prince's hospitalization spread like wildfire across global media. Within hours, fans gathered outside the medical center, holding vigils with candles and handmade signs expressing prayers and support. The Jackson family arrived throughout the night, each member bringing their own grief and worry. Janet, Michael's sister, stood beside him for hours, her silent presence offering comfort words couldn't provide. His mother, Catherine, prayed quietly in the corner, her weathered hands clasped tight, lips moving in whispered pleas to God. The waiting became torture. Each hour dragged endlessly, marked only by doctors entering with cautious updates that revealed little. Michael refused to leave Prince's side, surviving on cold coffee and sheer willpower. He studied every machine, learned what each beep and alarm meant, becoming an expert in his son's medical condition through desperate necessity. Sleep came in brief, fitful moments, his head resting on the edge of the bed, his hand never releasing his son's. He dreamed of better times, Prince's 4th birthday at Neverland, the zoo he'd built just to see his children's eyes light up with wonder. He remembered teaching Prince to dance, watching those small feet try mimicking his famous moves, both of them collapsing in giggles. Those memories now felt both precious and painful, reminding him of everything at stake. The media speculation intensified as days passed without official statements. Tabloids manufactured stories, some sympathetic, others exploiting the tragedy for sales. Michael's legal team worked overtime controlling the narrative, but truth mattered less than sensation in the hungry news cycle. Former bandmates sent messages of support. Celebrities who barely knew him publicly expressed concern, drawn to the human drama of a father's anguish. Fans organized prayer circles across continents, millions united in hoping for Prince's recovery. The world watched, waited, and for once, genuinely cared about Michael Jackson the father rather than Michael Jackson the icon. On the fifth night, Michael hit his limit. Exhaustion and fear converged into something dangerous. He stood abruptly, nearly knocking over a chair, his eyes wild with desperation. The calm, controlled demeanor he'd maintained for days shattered completely. He demanded answers, his voice rising in a way nurses had never heard from him. Why wasn't Prince waking? What were they missing? Had they consulted every specialist, explored every option? Dr. Harrison arrived within minutes, his face grave yet patient. He sat Michael down and spoke with painful honesty. Prince's condition remained critical but stable. His body was fighting, but recovery would take time, possibly weeks. There were risks, complications that could arise, setbacks that might occur. But there was also hope. Children possessed remarkable resilience. Prince was young, strong, and receiving the absolute best care available. Michael absorbed these words like physical blows, each one landing heavy. Hope felt too fragile to grasp, yet he clung to it desperately because the alternative was unthinkable. That night, alone with Prince in the quiet hours before dawn, Michael talked to his unconscious son. He spoke about their future, the things they'd do together when this nightmare ended. He promised to be better, more present, less consumed by the demons that had plagued his adult life. He apologized for the bizarre childhood fame had forced upon them, for the media circuses and constant scrutiny. He vowed that if Prince recovered, everything would change. Their life would become simpler, more normal, focused on what truly mattered: family, love, ordinary moments that most people took for granted. As Michael spoke, something shifted. Prince's fingers twitched slightly. It was barely perceptible, but Michael felt it immediately. His heart leaped. He leaned closer, watching intently, hoping it wasn't imagination born from desperation. Then it happened again, stronger this time. Prince's hand squeezed back, a tiny pressure that sent electricity through Michael's entire body. He called for nurses, his voice cracking with emotion too powerful to contain. The room erupted into controlled chaos. Doctors rushed in, checking monitors and vital signs with urgent efficiency. Dr. Harrison examined Prince carefully, his expression shifting from concern to cautious optimism. Michael stood back, fists clenched, barely breathing, as medical professionals surrounded his son. Minutes felt like hours until finally, impossibly, Prince's eyes fluttered open. They were unfocused at first, confused by the harsh lights and unfamiliar surroundings. But then they found Michael, and recognition sparked in those young eyes. The relief that flooded through Michael defied description. It was joy and gratitude and overwhelming love compressed into a single, perfect moment. He moved to Prince's bedside as doctors continued their examinations, and when they finally gave permission, he carefully embraced his son, mindful of all the tubes and wires. Prince was weak, disoriented, and would need extensive recovery, but he was awake. He was alive. The medical team explained that Prince had turned a crucial corner. His body had responded to treatment, fighting off the infection that had threatened his life. Full recovery would take months, require therapy and careful monitoring, but the prognosis had shifted from grave to genuinely hopeful. Michael wept openly, not caring who saw his tears. These weren't tears of anguish anymore but of profound gratitude. His family entered once doctors permitted, each person overcome with emotion. Catherine held her grandson gently, thanking God through her own tears. Janet stood beside Michael, squeezing his shoulder, both of them watching Prince with protective love. When news broke that Prince was recovering, the response was immediate and global. Fans celebrated outside the hospital, their vigil transforming into jubilant thanksgiving. Social media exploded with well wishes and prayers of gratitude. For once, the narrative surrounding Michael Jackson was purely positive, focused on universal human experience, a father's love, a child's survival. That moment when Michael held his son's hand and felt him squeeze back became the moment everything changed. Not just Prince's medical status, but Michael's entire perspective on life, legacy, and what truly mattered. The king of pop had learned what millions of parents already knew: nothing compares to holding your child's hand and knowing they'll be okay.